So, I'm a 911 operator. I work the graveyard shift, and let me tell you, I've heard pretty much everything. The tragic stuff, the terrifying stuff, and yeah, the just plain weird stuff. But see, most of the time, every call, it kind of fits into a box, you know? There's a protocol. But this one, this is the story of a call that just didn't.
Yeah, this is the call that's been really eating at me for weeks now. Now, I've had to change a few minor details, for privacy, but the core of it, the part that keeps me staring at the ceiling at night, that's all here. It's a story that's going to challenge everything you think you know about an emergency call.
Okay, so the whole thing kicks off in the dead of night, 2:30 a.m. People call it the witching hour. For us operators, it's usually the quiet time. The calm before, well, whatever comes next. The whole dispatch center has that stale smell of old coffee. You can just hear the hum of all the electronics. My screen was all green, totally quiet, and then a new call drops right into my queue. I pick up, do the standard 911, what's your emergency? And this trembling woman's voice comes on the line. She gives the address, 1427 Hawthorne Lane. She sounds absolutely terrified. But her first words, they were not what I was expecting. She wasn't reporting an intruder she could see. She was reporting one she could hear, coming from inside her own wardrobe. She's trying to explain it to me, saying it's not the usual creaks and groans of an old house. No, this was different. This was deliberate. She described this really distinct rhythm, something like tap, 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 tap. Super unsettling, right? And she's all alone in the house. Her husband had passed away the year before, so she's scared, obviously. But she finally works up the courage to go investigate. And right here, this is where the call just takes a hard left turn into the truly bizarre. She tells me that as she gets closer to the wardrobe, the knocking just stops. And then she hears it, a little boy's voice, whispering from inside the wardrobe. He sounds so scared and he's just begging for help. So, okay, suddenly this isn't just some weird noise in the house. The boy is telling her his father locked him in there. And that changes everything instantly. Now we're dealing with a potential child endangerment case, and that's a scenario that demands immediate action. No questions asked. Okay, so the sequence of events she starts describing is it's wild. She tells me she throws the wardrobe doors open, and it's completely empty. Nothing there. So she's thinking she's losing her mind, right? She closes the doors, and the second they latch shut, the knocking and the voice start up again, even louder this time. And then comes the line that just freezes my blood. The boy says his dad gets angry and hurts him sometimes. And that specific allegation of abuse, that was the trigger. There was no more room for doubt. We had to act. So with that claim of abuse on the table, I immediately initiated a high-priority welfare check. I got officers rolling to 1427 Hawthorne Lane, and I'm relaying every single disturbing detail Eleanor's telling me. The knocking, the kid's voice, all of it. So our officers get there in like 6 minutes. Super fast. But their very first report back to me, well, it creates a completely impossible situation. A man answers the door, says he's the homeowner, says he lives there alone with his son, and he tells them there's no Eleanor Vance living at that address at all. So now we're in this total paradox, because on the line with me, Eleanor is insisting, this is my house, I've lived here for 20 years, I can see your patrol car from my window right now. But the cops on scene, they're reporting that a man named Arthur Collins lives there with his son. And get this, he says he bought the house 3 years ago from the estate of its deceased owner, a man named Robert Vance. Okay, so let's just try to wrap our heads around this timeline for a second. 3 years ago, the house is sold. It belonged to the estate of a deceased Robert Vance. But Eleanor, my caller, who says she's his wife, told me he died just last year. And tonight, she's somehow calling 911 from a house she apparently doesn't even own anymore about a child she has no logical way of knowing even exists. It just makes no sense. But the call was far from over. So while I'm sitting there trying to make these two completely conflicting realities make sense in my head, the situation on the ground explodes. This Mr. Collins guy, the homeowner, he starts getting really agitated. He's refusing to let the officers go check on his son. And right at that moment, Officer Miller's voice crackles over the radio. He heard something, a faint cry, maybe a thump, coming from upstairs. From there, things happen fast, real fast. The homeowner gets hostile right as the sound comes from upstairs.
On the line, Eleanor is confirming, yes, the master bedroom is at the end of the hall. The police announce they're coming in, and they force entry. They get to that locked bedroom, they breach the door, and inside, they found him.
Oh, man. The wave of relief that washed over me, it was just overwhelming. The boy was real. His name was Leo. He was terrified, sure, but he was alive, and he was safe. This absolutely impossible phone call from Eleanor had led to a very real rescue. But there was still this one giant piece of the puzzle that just didn't fit. Eleanor herself. So I'm still on the line with her this whole time. I tell her, Eleanor, they found him. Leo is safe. And her response, it's just this broken whisper. She's describing what she's seeing. The officers rushing into her house. She says she was standing right there, in the living room. But they couldn't see her. They didn't even look at her. She said they walked right through where she was standing. And then, with this dawning, creeping horror in her voice that I will never ever forget, she starts putting the impossible facts together out loud. She realizes if Mr. Collins bought the house 3 years ago from the estate of her deceased husband, Robert, then that must mean she died too. And her final, chilling question just hung there in the air between us. Her voice didn't get cut off, it just faded away, like a weak radio signal. The line clicked, and then it was just dead. I'm frantically redialing the number, right? And it connects. But there's no one on the other end. Just this faint, hollow, whistling wind. It sounded like the wind blowing through some empty, desolate place. And then nothing. Look, the official report, it focuses on the facts. A welfare check was initiated based on an anonymous tip, and it led to the successful rescue of an abused child. Case closed. But I know what I heard. I know that a woman, a ghost, a memory, whatever she was, reached across some impossible divide to save that little boy's life. So it leaves you wondering, right? What other voices are out there, just waiting for someone to finally listen?